I don't recall inviting you to my advanced seminar, young lady. Dr. Lawrence Whitfield's voice sliced through the hushed atmosphere of Harvard University's prestigious Lowell Hall. His cold gaze fixed on Zora Williams, the only black student in the front row of his elite number theory course. 200 graduate students fell silent, all eyes turning to the confrontation unfolding before them. Zora, 19, sat perfectly still, her textbook open to the day's topic on prime number distribution. Her calm expression contrasted sharply with the growing hostility radiating from the renowned mathematician standing before her. I asked you a question, Dr. Whitfield continued, adjusting his gold-rimmed glasses. This is a doctoral, level course for students with exceptional mathematical aptitude, not for undergraduates who wandered in by mistake. Whispers rippled through the lecture hall. Zora had appeared unannounced, taking a seat in the front row as if she belonged there, despite not being on the official roster. I'm here to learn mathematics, Professor, Zora replied, her voice steady despite the hundreds of eyes scrutinizing her. The department secretary said I could audit advanced courses with professor permission. Dr. Whitfield's thin lips curved into a dismissive smile. Did she now? And what makes you think you could possibly follow the concepts we're discussing here? This isn't basic algebra. What no one in that room knew was that Zora Williams had grown up in Southside Chicago, where underfunded schools barely had functioning calculators. At age 11, she had discovered her grandmother's collection of dusty mathematics textbooks in their apartment storage closet. Her grandmother, Catherine Williams, had been a gifted mathematician herself, but as a black woman had been limited to teaching high school despite her brilliance. Those books became Zora's sanctuary from the neighborhood violence that claimed her older brother when she was 14. By 16, she had worked through every advanced mathematics text she could find at the public library, solving complex problems by the light of her phone when electricity was cut off in their apartment. What they also didn't know was that she had read every paper Dr. Whitfield had ever published and had found errors in 2 of them. Perhaps we can resolve this practically, Dr. Whitfield said, his voice dripping with condescension. Since you're so eager to participate, why don't you come up here and solve this problem? He turned to the blackboard and wrote a complex equation involving Riemann zeta functions, a notoriously difficult area of number theory that typically required specialized knowledge. The problem was deliberately chosen to humiliate the intruder and reassert his authority. Students exchanged uncomfortable glances. This was an impossible test, clearly designed to embarrass the young woman and force her to leave. Zora hesitated only briefly before standing. As she walked to the blackboard, memories flooded her mind. Nights spent solving equations by candlelight during power outages. The discouraging guidance counselor who suggested she pursue something more realistic than mathematics. The scholarship rejection letters that cited her lack of formal mathematical training despite perfect test scores. You have until the end of class, Dr. Whitfield announced, checking his watch with barely concealed satisfaction. Or rather, you have until you realize you're out of your depth here. Zora picked up the chalk, her fingers steady despite the pressure. As she examined the problem, a familiar calm settled over her. Mathematical structures had always appeared in her mind as architectural forms, elegant buildings of logic that revealed their secrets if you approached from the right angle. Dr. Whitfield retreated to his desk, not bothering to hide his smirk. Behind him, a teaching assistant named Elena Diaz watched with growing interest. As a Latina woman who had faced her own struggles in the department, she recognized the deliberate humiliation tactic for what it was. What Dr. Whitfield failed to notice was the slight smile forming on Zora's lips as she began to write. The chalk moved across the board with surprising confidence. Excuse me, Professor, Zora said after a moment. Would you mind if I use the Goldstein-Whitfield transformation for this section? It would simplify the approach. Dr. Whitfield's head snapped up in surprise. The Goldstein-Whitfield transformation was an obscure method he had developed with a colleague years ago, published only in a specialized journal with limited circulation. How could this girl possibly know about it? By all means, he replied, his voice betraying the first hint of uncertainty. As Zora's chalk glided across the blackboard with remarkable precision, a different kind of silence fell over the lecture hall. It was no longer the tense silence of an impending humiliation, but one of growing amazement. In the audience, a student named James Chen watched with particular interest. As a research fellow in the department, he recognized that Zora wasn't just reproducing standard approaches, she was developing an elegant solution that connected concepts in a way he'd never seen before. Dr. Whitfield remained motionless at his desk, his expression oscillating between disbelief and growing unease. There was something about the young woman's confidence, the ease with which she manipulated concepts that made doctoral candidates struggle, that suggested a much more complex story than he had assumed. What no one in that room could have imagined was that this impromptu confrontation wasn't just about a mathematics problem. It was the prelude to a revelation that would shake the foundations of not only Harvard's mathematics department, but the entire culture of academic gatekeeping that had excluded countless brilliant minds like Zora's for generations. 20 minutes later, not the full hour Whitfield had mockingly granted, Zora placed the chalk down and stepped back from the board. The solution was elegant, innovative, and undeniably correct. More impressively, she had found a shortcut that simplified the traditional approach. "Impossible," Dr. Whitfield muttered, rising from his chair to examine her work more closely. "You must have seen this specific problem before." Zora shook her head. "No, sir. I just applied the approach you outlined in your 2018 paper on zeta function distributions, but with a modification that eliminates the need for the intermediate steps." Whitfield's face paled. That paper had been published in an obscure mathematical journal and had received minimal attention. How could this young woman not only know it, but improve upon it? "Class dismissed," he announced abruptly. "You," he pointed at Zora, "in my office, now." As students filed out, murmuring excitedly about what they had witnessed, Elena Diaz deliberately dropped her notebook near Zora. "Help me with these," she said loudly, as they both bent to retrieve the scattered papers. Close to the floor, shielded from view, she whispered, "He's going to try to discredit you." "I've seen it before. Meet me at the mathematics library at 6 p.m. Bring a flash drive." In Whitfield's office, an elegant space adorned with awards and photos of him alongside Fields Medal winners, the interrogation continued. "I want to know who coached you through that solution," he demanded, tossing a folder onto his desk. "Your file says you attended public schools in Chicago." "No mathematics competitions, no advanced placement courses. Explain how that's possible." Zora took a deep breath. "I taught myself, sir. My grandmother was a mathematician. She left her books when she passed." "Preposterous," Whitfield scoffed. "Someone is using you to embarrass me. Was it Chen from Princeton, or perhaps Rodriguez from MIT? "No one is using me," Zora replied calmly. "I can solve any other problem you choose." Whitfield's eyes narrowed. "Fine. I want a complete analysis of Langland's program implications for prime number distribution by Friday. 10 pages with full proofs." "Impossible without formal training." "I'll have it Thursday," Zora replied, meeting his gaze steadily. When she left the office, she felt drained. The confrontation had not been part of her plan. After having her application to the mathematics program rejected twice despite perfect GRE scores, she had decided on a bolder approach: attend the classes anyway and prove her abilities directly. At 6 p.m. in the nearly empty mathematics library, Zora found Elena waiting in a secluded corner. "Why are you helping me?" Zora asked cautiously. Elena glanced around before answering. "Because I know what it's like to have your abilities questioned because of how you look." She handed Zora a flash drive. "Whitfield isn't just prejudiced, he's fraudulent. 2 years ago, he stole a proof from a Nigerian doctoral student and published it as his own. The student was expelled when he complained." Zora felt a knot form in her stomach. "How did you get this information?" "I'm his research assistant. I have access to his files." Elena hesitated. "Including the paper he's planning to publish next month." "It's groundbreaking work on prime number distribution, but he didn't develop it. Professor Jackson did, before she died unexpectedly." That night, in the small apartment she shared with her grandmother's old friend who had taken her in when she moved to Cambridge, Zora examined the contents of the flash drive. Among the files was evidence of a pattern of academic theft spanning years. Brilliant work by women and minorities, appropriated by Whitfield and published under his name. More disturbing were the rejection letters he had written for scholarship applications from minority students, including her own. While technically proficient, the applicant lacks the creative mathematical thinking required for our program. With a dim lamp illuminating her small desk, Zora sent an email to the mathematics department chair. I formally request enrollment in Dr. Whitfield's advanced number theory course under the department's diversity initiative. She knew this would trigger an administrative review where Whitfield would be forced to justify any refusal publicly. Over the next few days, Zora divided her time between preparing her analysis of the Langlands program and something much more ambitious. Using the information Elena had provided, she began analyzing Whitfield's upcoming publication, discovering not only that it was plagiarized, but that it contained subtle errors that revealed his limited understanding of the original work. In the university cafeteria, James Chen, the research fellow who had witnessed her solution, approached her table. Whitfield is investigating your background, he said quietly. He's convinced you're being coached by one of his academic rivals. Perfect, Zora replied with a slight smile. Let him think that. What are you planning? James asked, intrigued by her confidence. Justice, she replied simply. Not just for me. What no one knew, not even Elena, was that Zora wasn't fighting only for herself. In her Chicago neighborhood, she had secretly tutored mathematics to younger students, bright minds who, like her, had been told explicitly or implicitly that advanced mathematics wasn't for people like them. On Thursday, as promised, Zora delivered her analysis of the Langlands program. It wasn't 10 pages, but 27, with an original approach that connected the abstract theory to concrete applications in cryptography. Whitfield leafed through the document with growing disbelief, which turned to poorly concealed amazement as he recognized the sophistication of the work. This is unexpected, he finally admitted. But it doesn't change anything. You're still not officially enrolled in my course. Not yet, Zora replied calmly. The academic committee meeting is tomorrow at 9 a.m. I'll be there to argue for my formal admission. What Whitfield didn't notice as he dismissed her with a wave was the quiet determination in her eyes, the look of someone who had calculated every variable in a complex equation and knew exactly how it would resolve. That night, lights burned late in 2 different windows across campus. In his elegant faculty apartment, Whitfield frantically reviewed his upcoming publication, suddenly anxious about details he had glossed over when appropriating Jackson's work. In her small room, Zora finalized her analysis of the same paper, an analysis that would reveal far more than mathematical errors. The Harvard University Academic Affairs Committee meeting room was filled to capacity when Zora arrived. 6 senior professors and the dean sat at the elevated table. While dozens of students and faculty members packed the observer seats, news of the confrontation in Whitfield's class had spread throughout the mathematics community. We are considering Ms. Williams' request for formal admission to Dr. Whitfield's advanced number theory course, announced Dr. Hernandez, the committee chair. Dr. Whitfield, I understand you have objections? Whitfield rose with the confidence of someone accustomed to having his authority unchallenged. This young woman, while showing some aptitude, lacks the necessary background for this advanced course. Her presence would compromise the rigor that Harvard mathematics is known for. If I may, Zora interrupted, her voice clear in the hushed room. I would like to submit 2 documents for the committee's consideration. Whitfield frowned as Zora distributed folders to the committee members. The first document is my analysis of the Langlands program, which Dr. Whitfield himself described as unexpected. The second is a comparative analysis between Dr. Whitfield's forthcoming publication on prime number distribution and the unpublished work of the late Dr. Amara Jackson. Whitfield's face drained of color. This is absurd. A desperate attempt to... Page 4, paragraph 3, Zora said calmly. The mathematical derivation is identical, symbol for symbol, to Jackson's manuscript. A heavy silence fell over the room as the committee members quickly checked the indicated pages. This proves nothing, Whitfield recovered partially. Jackson and I collaborated frequently. Zora nodded. That's why I've also included, on page 12, proof of the critical error in the final theorem, an error that would invalidate the entire approach if published. An error that any mathematician who truly understood the work would have identified immediately. Whitfield's face contorted with rage. Who put you up to this? Chen? Rodriguez? Who's manipulating this girl? No one is manipulating me, Zora replied, maintaining her composure. Just as no one taught me advanced mathematics, I learned from my grandmother's books and papers I printed at the public library. She turned to address the committee directly. I didn't come here to expose Dr. Whitfield. I came because I deserve the same opportunity as any other student with my abilities. Elena stood from the audience. I can confirm all of this. As Dr. Whitfield's research assistant, I have access to Dr. Jackson's original documents, and this isn't the first case. Dr. Hernandez removed her glasses, visibly disturbed. Dr. Whitfield, is this true? Whitfield's silence was damning. His carefully constructed reputation, built on prestige and intimidation, was crumbling before everyone's eyes. I also have testimony from 4 other students, Zora added, placing a USB drive on the table. All from underrepresented groups, all who had their work appropriated or were pushed out of the program when they questioned Dr. Whitfield's methods. Dr. Hernandez looked directly at Whitfield, then back to Zora. A formal investigation will be launched immediately. As for your request, Ms. Williams, you are not only accepted into the course but offered a full scholarship in our doctoral program. This is outrageous, Whitfield exploded. I'm Lawrence Whitfield. My name is on fundamental theorems that, which I corrected on the board yesterday, Zora interjected quietly. And honestly, recognition has never been my goal, only mathematics. You'll regret this, Whitfield shouted, lunging toward Zora. 2 security officers quickly moved to restrain him. Dr. Whitfield, you are suspended from teaching duties pending our investigation, Dr. Hernandez declared firmly. As the room erupted in murmurs, Zora remained calm. There was no triumph in her expression, only the quiet satisfaction of someone who had finally been able to demonstrate her true abilities. From the back of the room, someone began to applaud. Soon others joined, and a wave of support filled the chamber. Among the faces in the crowd, Zora recognized several minority students who had been silently struggling in the department. 3 months later, Harvard University's main lecture hall was filled to capacity, not for a regular class, but for the inaugural lecture of the newly established Inclusive Excellence in Mathematics Initiative. At the podium stood Zora Williams, now the youngest research fellow in the department's history. Welcome to Reimagining Mathematical Access, Breaking Barriers in Number Theory, Zora began, her confident voice filling the space where she had once been humiliated. In the front rows sat dozens of high school students from underserved communities in Boston, invited as part of the outreach program Zora had created. Among them was her former neighbor from Chicago, Darius, a 16-year-old with remarkable mathematical intuition who had never had a proper calculator until Zora sent him one. The investigation into Whitfield had revealed not just systematic plagiarism, but decades of discrimination against minority and female students. 3 other professors were placed under review, and the department was undergoing a comprehensive overhaul of its admissions and mentoring practices. Mathematics, Zora explained as elegant equations appeared on the digital display behind her, belongs to no race, gender, or social class. It belongs to those with the courage to question and the persistence to discover. In the back row, Elena smiled proudly. Now coordinating the department's new mentoring program, she helped identify promising talent in underserved schools throughout Massachusetts. Meanwhile, at a small community college in rural Maine, Dr. Lawrence Whitfield taught basic algebra to disinterested freshmen. After being dismissed for cause, his academic reputation was in tatters. No prestigious institution would touch his resume, and his most significant publications had been retracted after review. After her lecture, Dr. Hernandez approached Zora with evident admiration. Your new approach to the Riemann hypothesis constraints is revolutionary. The committee is already talking about fast-tracking you for a professorship. Thank you, Zora replied. But it's not entirely my work. It emerged from a study group I created in Chicago, brilliant young people with no formal opportunities. This was perhaps the most significant transformation of all. Zora had turned her position at Harvard into a hub connected virtually with dozens of talented young mathematicians from marginalized communities. creating a collaborative model that challenged the very notion of mathematical genius as a solitary, privileged pursuit. Her first official publication, Democratizing Mathematical Knowledge, a framework for inclusive excellence, was generating as much discussion as her breakthroughs in number theory. That evening, as she crossed Harvard Yard, Zora paused to look at the mathematics building where her name now appeared on the department website. A group of young Black and Latina girls approached her shyly. "Dr. Williams," one girl said, "we started a math club because of your story. Some people told us we should try something easier, but we didn't listen." Zora smiled, remembering herself just months earlier. "The greatest barrier to knowledge has never been our ability," she told them. "It's been the world convincing us that we don't belong in certain spaces. But when you prove your worth, no matter how they tried to diminish you, you don't just open doors for yourself. You create pathways for everyone who follows." That night, in her new campus apartment, Zora reviewed applications for the summer mathematics camp she had founded. On her desk, framed, was her Harvard rejection letter. Beside it, a handwritten note from her grandmother found among her books. "Mathematics doesn't care about your color or gender, only the elegance of your solutions." Zora Williams' story reminds us that true genius isn't measured by credentials alone, but by the courage to challenge systems designed to exclude. And that true justice isn't just personal vindication. It's transforming the equation so that others can solve it too.